On this week's episode, floriculture professor Bruce Dunn talks about visiting trial gardens to find new and exciting plant material. Entomologist Andrine Shufran rectifies some of the misunderstandings about brown recluse spiders. Extension wildlife specialist Dwayne Elmore has information about snakes in the landscape. And Barbara Brown prepares a bean and pea salad. Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance is provided by TLC, Oklahoma's leading garden center, Southwood Landscape and Nursery, Tulsa's source for great gardens, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
Hello, I'm Bruce Dunn. I'm Associate Professor of Floriculture here at Oklahoma State University. Today I'm walking through the trial beds out here at the Botanic Gardens. These trial beds are actually located kind of west of the studio gardens, and I get plant material from proven winners, and I've also got some plant material this year from Ball horticulture as well. And all the proven winner stuff comes from vegetative cuttings. The Ball stuff, the Ball plant material actually comes either as vegetative, or I've also got some plants that I grew from seed as well that they gave me. I'd encourage everyone to come out here as far as the trial gardens, whether it's this gardens or another gardens, and see it multiple times through the year. If you come out here once, you may not fully get the full the full view of what these plants actually look like, because early on in the season, definitely the plants will look a lot better. The temperatures are a lot cooler, and there's also usually a little bit more rainfall. But if you really want to see how the plant material does over time, you know, visit these gardens, visit these trial beds at least once a month, and you can definitely see the progression of these plants. Some of them will be a little bit slower to flower and develop a little bit later, and other ones are just kind of the opposite of that system. Okay, and one of these examples here is with these dahlias. And again, whenever you see these plants at the trials, you know, if they're not doing well, don't necessarily give up on them. Okay, I think the rule of thumb is that, you know, try a plant at least 2 or 3 times. If it doesn't do well, then maybe think about another plant. There's a lot of factors involved when you see the plants out here in the trial gardens, or if you go to the gardens themselves. You know, what's the soil conditions? How much rainfall are we getting here? Is it in full sun? Okay, something like these dahlias, if they had some partial shade or on the east side of your house, they would do a lot better as well. Other ones in here, you've got some, you know, the petunias. These plants, you know, they kind of cycle, it seems like. Sometimes you may come out here and it's just full of blooms. They've really filled in real nice, and other times they just really haven't developed very well. Another example here is this lantana. It's a little bit slow growing to start with, but you can see this is 1st of August. It's filled in really nicely, and lots of great flowers for it. You can see all the butterflies that are on this plant. So if you saw it in May, you may not be impressed with it. You see it here in July when we got the heat. It's a great plant. Another one that you may notice, it's kind of new for the trials, is portulaca from the Proven Winners program. Mojave, and then they've got different colors, pink and tangerine. And for those, if you come out here early morning, like what we are now, you may notice that, well, the flowers aren't open. You'd walk right by it, it's nothing great. But if you see this plant later in the afternoon, the flowers are all open. It's a good drought tolerant plant. It would definitely be a showstopper for you. So I just encourage you to come out here, see these trials multiple times throughout the year, and understand that, again, there's a lot of environmental factors as well as soil conditions that are affecting these plants. So just take a look at them and trial them several times at your house as well before you make any kind of judgment on them. Again, I'd like to encourage people to come out to the gardens multiple times throughout the year to see what these plants are actually doing. Again, just because in the early spring, definitely probably going to look better than what they're going to look towards the end of the season. So if you only see it at the end, you may not understand kind of how these plants do at the beginning of the year as well.
We're here today to talk a little bit about the brown recluse spider, probably the most misunderstood arachnid on the planet. I have several different kinds of spiders in front of me that are often mistaken for the brown recluse, but the brown recluse himself, there are just so many myths about it that people are very afraid, probably more afraid of this spider than any other spider in the United States. But probably all the things you believe about the brown recluse that are fact are actually probably misconceptions. So let's talk about a few of those. Most people think that anytime somebody gets bitten by a fiddleback, also known as the brown recluse, that they will get a big dead spot, flesh rotting sore. That actually is a very rare response. Sometimes people get a swelling, sometimes people get a little bit of a fever, but the actual dead spot of skin only happens in 1 out of 10 people. Sometimes, and this is more serious, people will actually get a systemic response. That only happens about 1% of the time, but that's when you really need to talk to a doctor and see if you can get treatment for that. So let's look at some of these spiders really quick. 3 brown spiders. Which one is the fiddleback? The one in the center, which actually has the marking near the eyes that looks like a guitar shape. The reason that a misdiagnosis or the misconceptions about the brown recluse are so important to understand is that if you have something happening to your body and you take it to a doctor and they misdiagnose this, they could be missing something more important. Skin lesions can be caused by leishmaniasis, lymphoma, infections, all these things which could be much more serious than a brown recluse bite. And if you ignore those, they can lead to serious medical issues. Now, a brown recluse bite is very common probably. Most people have them in their homes. Brown recluses are found in Oklahoma, especially in places with lots of clutter. Attics, boxes, garages. You'll find numerous brown recluses, but they're very reclusive. They don't like people. And they're actually small spiders with very small fangs. The most common way that people get bitten is by laying their clothes on the floor. A spider will move into their clothes, which are warm and smelly at night. And then when people put those clothes or shoes on in the morning, they'll end up with a bite. The spider is so small and his fangs are so small that he actually needs the shirt or the pair of pants to push against to actually penetrate our skin and get an envenomation. So the most common places to get bitten are the legs, the arms, and the torso, more so than the hands or even the feet. If you have a bite and you develop the necrosis, the dead skin cells in that area, if it gets pussy, that is not a brown recluse bite. Brown recluse bites actually cave in, get white, and may take many weeks for the rot to develop. If a sore gets pussy and oozes, that's an indication of infection. Bacterial, fungal, microbial, virus infection, and you definitely need to seek medical attention to get antibiotics and hydrocortisone to treat those. While there are all these misconceptions and misunderstandings about this small spider, the population of humans have grown very fearful. In response to that, one of our leading arachnologists in the United States has responded with a book just this year written exclusively about the brown recluse. His name is Richard Vedder, and he's a retired professional arachnologist who has spent over 2 decades studying just this animal and collecting all sorts of scientific data regarding its dangerousness or not dangerousness, its life cycle, where it's found, its habitat, and just about anything else that you could imagine about this small spider. The book that he wrote is called The Brown Recluse by Richard Vedder, and it's produced from Cornell University. And it's taking 20 years of data and all the science that we could find about this animal and putting it into a book that's very easy for everyday people to read. It's intended for the general population more so than the scientific community. And his target is really for people to understand more about this spider, and specifically reaching out to medical practitioners who often make the mistake of diagnosing a spider bite when they might be looking at something else that needs a different and a more serious kind of treatment. 80% of bites are misdiagnosed as a spider bite when they could be gangrene or leishmaniasis or diabetic ulcers. There are any number of other things that can happen to your skin aside from a spider bite. So remember, when it comes to the brown recluse, only about 1 out of every 10 people has any kind of serious reaction, including that skin sore. Only 1% of people who are bitten have the systemic all over body response that can make you very sick. But so far, in all the documentation from 150 years of medical research, there has never been a documented death from the fiddleback, from the brown recluse spider in the United States. Yes, you want to treat a bite, even if you think it's a bite and might be an infection. You want to go to the doctor and seek treatment, but you don't have to fear that this little tiny brown reclusive spider is going to mean death for your children, your pets, or yourself. They're actually very harmless, and if you want to treat them, the best thing to do is to bring in a professional to treat your house and then maintain with flat paper, inexpensive sticky traps to keep a check on the population in your house.
If you spend much time in your home garden, at some point you're going to encounter a snake. There are over 45 species of snakes in Oklahoma, and the vast majority of these are completely harmless. We would call these non-venomous snakes. They're very important. They help control rodents. They add beauty and interest to your garden. Although homeowners are often concerned about them, particularly whether it's a venomous snake or a non-venomous snake. And the few that we have that are venomous are called pit vipers. And these do need to be avoided. They have generally broad heads. That's the thing that you can look for to distinguish a venomous versus a non-venomous snake. And you might consider getting a good resource like a field guide to Oklahoma's amphibians and reptiles, or you can also go online at OK Snakes, and that'll help you distinguish what species you're dealing with. But chances are, if you have a snake in your home garden, it's a non-venomous one that you don't need to be concerned about. You can simply let that snake go about its business and not worry about it. But if you see one that has a broad head, there is a chance that it is a rattlesnake or a copperhead, one that you do need to give a wide berth to. There is one snake called a hognose snake that also has a broad head. When it's threatened, it'll spread its head out a little bit, and so that one might be confused with some of the potentially dangerous ones, but it's not one you're likely to encounter. Species that you're probably going to see in your home garden include ones like the black rat snake. There's several garter snake species, and potentially if you have a pond or a water feature, you might see one of the water snakes. These are all harmless, although sometimes they will put on defensive postures or even try to rattle their tail in leaves, and these are all just efforts to try to keep you from killing them. So don't be confused by those actions and interpret it as hostility. They're just trying to defend themselves. But even the venomous snakes are extremely wary of humans and not very prone to strike. It's usually a last-ditch effort if they think that you're going to harm them. Most strikes that we would have in a home garden are in situations where the homeowner just did not see the snake. Perhaps they put their hand somewhere without looking, or they're barefoot and they walk in thick vegetation. So be mindful of that. Make sure you can see where you're putting your hands and feet. And if you hear a rattle from a rattlesnake, then just back out of the area. Probably the one that is most likely to be encountered in the home garden that is venomous is called the copperhead. It's a very cryptic, small snake. It's very docile. However, because it's so cryptic, sometimes people put their hands next to it without seeing it, especially if you're reaching under brush, like in a compost pile. And those are situations where a strike might happen. So consider, wearing thick gloves, and certainly don't put your hands under objects without looking first. Particularly in compost piles, or if you have piled debris, wood piles, or 2x4s, things like that. But as far as just in general, the snakes that you're going to encounter are very beneficial. Even the venomous ones are very beneficial. But just enjoy them and get a good resource where you can identify them and know what you're seeing, and know that it's not a harmful animal, but it's actually a very beneficial animal to have in your landscape. If you do identify a venomous snake in your landscape, it's best to leave it alone. If you're concerned about it staying in the landscape, which it probably won't, it'll probably be gone within an hour or two, but if that is a concern, you can call someone called a nuisance wildlife control operator. And the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation maintains a list of these folks by county, and you can give them a call and they will come out for a fee and remove that animal from your landscape. In the very remote chance that you were ever bitten by a venomous snake, what you need to do is just get to medical attention immediately. Don't wait. The sooner you can get there, the better. And if it's on an extremity, you can keep that site elevated, but there's really nothing else you need to do except get to medical attention right away.
Today we're going to do bean and pea salad. Now this is a great combination that you can mix and match with what's in season and what's in the freezer. So whatever you pick, what you want is something that's going to be beautiful and green. So what we're going to do is start with 2 cups of sugar snap peas, and I'm going to blanch these because they are fresh. So I've got some nice boiling water here, and I'm going to put those in there for about 30 seconds to a minute. We just want to do that initial cooking. It helps clean off anything that might be there microbial-wise, dirt-wise. You want to wash them first too, but it helps do that. It also softens them, but not very much, because it's kind of a speed cooking kind of thing. Now if we're using snow peas, which are already pretty soft and don't need any cooking at all, you could skip this step. If you were using some of these out of the freezer, you could also skip this step because it happens before they get into the freezer. So in addition to these, I'm also going to be using 2 cups of edamame and 1 cup of English peas or green peas, whichever way you like to refer to them. These do come from the freezer, so I don't have to do anything from them except thaw them out. All right, these are ready to go. So I want to stop the cooking as soon as I can. So we'll turn that off and move this over here to a trivet, and then I'm going to fish these out and put them directly into ice water. And they need to stay in the ice water for about the same length of time that they were in the pot. So if it was 30 seconds for whatever you've got, 30 seconds here would probably do it. And again, then if it was a minute, you probably want to go a little bit longer. So that looks like all of those. So I'll get these out of the way, and we'll let those cool down just a little bit more. And while that happens, we're going to go ahead and start working on the rest of the salad. Now, I've got a big bowl here to work with, and I'm going to use 2 ounces, which is about a half a cup of some kind of cured meat. You could use cured ham, cured turkey, use whatever flavor you like. It's going to change what you get with, but pick the one you either have in the freezer or pick the one that you like the best. We've sliced it really thin. I had it sliced at the deli, and then we had it sliced into little strips as well. So the only thing I'd recommend on this is that you kind of break them up a little bit. But again, this could be something that you have in your refrigerator anyway, so there's nothing special that you have to go ahead and buy. I'm going to add to that the 1 cup of green peas that have been thawed and the 2 cups of edamame. You could use fava beans on this one as well, so there's lots of options for this kind of a salad. Just going to stir those together a little bit, and after the sugar snap peas have cooled enough, we're going to stir those in here as well. But while we're waiting for that to finish up, let's go ahead and make our dressing that's going to go on this. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, 1/4 of a cup of chopped fresh mint. Now this is one that it really does make a difference whether you have fresh or dehydrated. This particular one kind of requires that you, for the best flavor, that you do use the fresh. Also going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and I use kosher salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper, a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, and this one, again, something that's got a nice flavor is going to be better, and then 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. I'm just going to whisk those together. Now, it's not going to blend together completely like a real salad dressing will, because we've got those ribbons of mint in there, and I did cut it as ribbons rather than do a real fine chop on it. So let's go ahead and move our other peas in here. Try and miss the ice cubes as you go. Sometimes you have to flick one out of the way. We're just going to get these in here. Notice the beautiful color that we're getting here. We have all of this great green, which sometimes in wintertime you just start to crave some of those beautiful colors of springtime. Also works great at Christmas because we use a lot of green there, and this may save you from making that traditional broccoli salad for the year. Well, I'm getting more ice cubes now than I am peas. We may leave these last couple here, and I'll fish those out after we get the salad finished up. You don't want to transfer too much of the water from there, or too much of the ice, because you don't want to have the dressing watered down. All right, our dressing is now ready to come on here. I'm just going to stir those together, and this will make a terrific salad. This actually makes 8 servings, and I know a lot of families are much smaller now. This one holds up fairly well because we have the edamame in here, which is a good protein source. It's a soybean, and we have the little bit of meat in here. This one actually could be a main course salad as opposed to just something that goes on the side. This one's really pretty, really gorgeous. I hope you're going to give it a try. It really does bring up that fresh spring flavor that we start craving as the winter months go on and on. I hope you'll try it. It's bean and pea salad for Oklahoma Gardening. I'm Barbara Brown.
Next week, Extension Stormwater Specialist Jason Vogel features a bioretention and rain garden demonstration project in Oklahoma City. OSU Stillwater's urban forester Chris Martin visits with a student who gained valuable experience with an on-campus internship with OSU's Landscape Services. Barbara Brown cooks a cannellini bean soup, and we have horticultural tips for November. So join us then for more TV you'll grow to love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, TLC Garden Centers, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.